Hello everyone, my name is Fabien BENETOU. I'm going to present you openness as a strategical advantage, how WebXR and open source sustainably push the boundaries of innovation. So I'm the European Parliament Innovation Lab WebXR consultant and the UNICEF Innovation Fund WebXR technical advisor. And I'm not going to present you those concepts, those ideas like this. I'm going to bring you on a little journey of what actually are those advantages, what are the challenges. So come with me. Let's start this journey then together. I'm going to clarify a little bit first what I do for the European Parliament and UNICEF. So starting with the European Parliament, I'm at the Innovation Lab where basically we're trying to do two things. Number one is evaluate technologies, and typically we have amazing advertisements for, let's say, an AR headset, and the marketing department is usually ahead of the technical department, and it means there is a marketing gap, and we're trying to evaluate if basically we're there yet or if we need to try again in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And that's why we avoid any kind of presentation of PowerPoint, but rather do prototypes and proof of concept. So for example, here I had the chance last year to make the President of the European Parliament try an augmented reality headset to consider facial recognition. That was very interesting, and again the goal is to get a hands-on experience. And for UNICEF, what I do is to help startups when they have been selected by the Innovation Fund, a $20 million fund. Each startup receives $100,000 and 1 year of support, and I'm part of the support basically when I come knock at the door and say, hey, what have you been doing? How can I help with your stack? So this kind of support. I had the chance to go to Nigeria and Ghana to help them on-site discover what 2 brand new startups were building and support them, to give workshops also in New York. It's been a challenge for the last couple of years, but really an amazing experience. And the second part is to select those startups, to help select them based on what the technological stack is again, how they could grow and scale. So those are my 2 main challenges at the moment. But let's see what it takes to actually build an XR experience. So as we start to get actually there, we start to get challenges and attack here. So for example, one of the biggest questions I think most people have a fear for openness in terms of, okay, but can we actually make money if we release open source software or free software? Well, yes you can, and it's really important to distinguish that. And a biggest example I would say is probably Red Hat. Red Hat got bought by IBM, but there are plenty of others, including of course Google or Microsoft, that are using open source, building open source software. So I want to distinguish, to clarify this, that open source and free software doesn't mean not making money, and that's something we usually have to clarify with startups that apply to the Innovation Fund. We're only funding for-profit startups, so that means we do expect them to build open source solution and yet make money. So to go on this journey, to go on with this, I'll have a little backpack with me, and to symbolize that it can be for profit, then I'll put those little coins in my backpack and continue along. So we can grow, we can make money, but actually if we want to grow a lot more, well, this is what I like to represent with this dragon, basically for venture capital and bigger investment. The dragon as symbolized being on a pile of gold, and this is basically what UNICEF, the Innovation Fund, is trying to do, to say, well, if you're for profit, and you could address part of the 1 billion plus person needs, specifically with a focus on children, and you could be part of a $100 billion industry like virtual and augmented reality, then we want to help you. We want to help you to grow, basically. So it's frontier tech, emerging tech, and to go for startup, to scale up using digital public goods. And I'll go back on this a bit. So yes, I put in my backpack not just gold coins but also gold lingots, because you can get a lot more. There are investors and venture capitalists that are specifically looking for open source solution. So as I go on my journey, then I want to build software, but I don't have to do everything myself. And that's also the beauty of open source, that there are other software out there using open source licenses like MPL from Mozilla Public License, Apache, GPL, that I can use. And one of those is actually what we're doing this little tour or hike or visit together. This adventure is actually inside Mozilla Hubs. And Mozilla Hubs is open source, so it means you can use it, build on top of it. There are startups that are right now considering using hubs to provide their solution. And this means the software itself is open source, but also those 3D models we can see all around us are based using this new inter-exchange format, GLTF. So it means I can send 3D models with their colors, with their shape and geometries and animations to anybody anywhere using just the power of the web. So for this, I'll put, because I'm walking around the path, a boot in my little backpack to symbolize that open source, free software, standard format means I don't have to do everything myself. I can rely on the shoulders of giants, and thanks to them, I can go further and faster. So I'll thank the IG crowd and just go on. So it's great because I was able to use existing software, but I can also make my own, of course, and I can build on top of it. So if the boot doesn't exactly fit me, then I can actually make my own socks. And if I do this, then the community, other people will be cheering for me or my company, because they can also then use that sock and improve the whole experience rather than just working with the boot. So that means also that there is a whole community, let's say on Discord or Slack, that I can chat with. And also I want to highlight places like GitHub or GitLab that sound technical in the sense that they are repositories for software, but in the end, there are social networks. There are social networks where developers, where testers, where designers will meet and then discuss an issue, will provide a pull request, will help each other. So I really want to highlight how social that is and how you can grow this community. And it's really a community in the sense that we can help each other, but also some might be future clients, some might be future partners. So it has a lot of power. So in my backpack, I'll put here this megaphone. But then I can go on, and what becomes bring me to new height, and what I think is really crucial here is that I can also use standards with the WebXR specification, for example. What it means is that I have my website. Web in WebXR stands for Web of Augmented and Virtual Reality, and anything that could come up after that. So I have my traditional website, but it also works in a headset. It also works let's say, with my phone or a tablet, but also with state-of-the-art augmented reality, for example. And it works also with more affordable, any kind of solution basically for VR and AR. And that's one of the key aspects of it in terms of strategy. Is it means your responsive solution can be consumed in pretty much any device that has a web browser, which is huge because, I mean, you buy a fridge today, it will have a web browser. If you buy a handheld console, it will have a web browser. If you buy a watch, I think even some have web browsers. So it's really pervasive. The web is everywhere. So meaning if you support WebXR, chances are you'll be able to share your content, and including social content, extremely easily. So this is extremely important. But also it means now you start to have file formats, standard specification, other software. So all those are tools basically to build a solution, to create a solution. But those tools don't necessarily give you a goal or a purpose. And the United Nations define the SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, for 2030. And those goals include, for example, poverty, hunger, education, and 17 goals in total. So when you bring those goals with the standard specification, file format, then you can have what's called a digital public good. And digital public good, I believe, are extremely powerful because they can bring us together so that we can reuse each other knowledge, know-how, and tackle goals that are crucial for us all as a society. So what I can bring then in my backpack is, of course, through standard and specification, harmonized tools that will, thanks to interoperability, work together, but also goals so that we do it for good reasons. So yes, my journey is coming to an end with tools and goals, but I want to, before I conclude, invite you to step back. And stepping back means pulling a bit the curtain, so that means I need to not just say how it's done or how I believe it is strategical, but actually go further than this, and I'll show you how I did the presentation. So I use Mozilla Hubs, as I mentioned, but also Mozilla Hubs has Mozilla Spoke, which is a 3D editor to put those assets together. So from this dragon to the SDG posters, I was able to configure the presentation for this. I was also able, if I needed, to comment on what spoke, what are the limitations, what are the issues, and pull requests. So that's the beauty of it, but the browser itself was using Firefox, so it means the browser I use for Spoke to edit my scene is open source. But the scene is made of 3D assets, so those 3D assets you might recognize, but I'm going to help you a bit. That's actually where we were. That's our little journey. That's our little altar, for example. So everything there is using, thanks to Blender, I can modify any object in the scene. So all those 3D assets I can export using JLTF can be modified. But I can also step back. What I'm using now to record is also open source. OBS, Open Broadcaster, is becoming the standard of how to actually have our new life online, since we're having all our meetings and video and presentation like this. And I can also step back even more, because the way I edit the video itself, how I went through those different steps, is actually done using open source and the Kadian Live solution. But I can step back again just one last time, because all those tools are interesting, but I hope at least this little journey that we did together, I sketched it, and I sketched it on this little device, the Remarkable, that is actually running Linux. And that's the beauty of all those tools together. Is this presentation I gave you, I hope, was interesting, but I have to be honest, it is far from perfect, and I see a lot of flaws to it. But I was able to do it using all those tools, and all those tools are open source, free software, standard format, meaning everything there, you can challenge it and you can improve it, and you can come back to me, you can build on actually on top of my presentation, because I'll give the source to the entire process and all the assets. So that's the key message here, is that there is no limit to what you can create. There is no need for artificial boundaries to what your innovation can be. So any step on that stack, any level, any layer, should never become some artificial limits to what you want to build. It doesn't mean I can do it. It doesn't mean I have the knowledge, the competency to do it, but I know that I will not have to prevent myself from trying and from thinking about what I could do. So that's really the key message here. So I want to reiterate, in my backpack I had a way to monetize, because free and open source software and standard doesn't mean not being able to make money, even to raise money with venture capital, VC that support open source innovation, using standard format like GLTF for all the 3D objects, using open source software to stand on the shoulders of giants, using the community, building together and then reaching a wider audience, having goals that actually are positive for society as a whole, and using standards for ensuring interoperability on all devices. So it is a crazy journey, it's a crazy adventure, but I hope you can see that you don't have to do it alone, we can do it together. And I think that's really the beauty of openness in innovation, in VR, AR, and anything really. If you know a startup that could be interesting in applying for the UNICEF Innovation Fund, to please go on the Innovation Fund website. And yes, let's build this new world together. Thank you so much.